What's up, Professor Wergeles? We just finished cookie cache, doing HTTPS redirects and preventing the browser from caching our page. The next thing we're going to look at is session. In session, login form is going to be the same. The main part of the program is in login.php. So if I open up login.php, you'll see here it's the same code as my cookie. I'm checking to see if the cookie exists. If they've logged in, I redirect them to the main page. But now we want to use session. The main thing for sessions is before I can call a session super global array, I always have to call this session start method. If I don't call session start, I can't use the session super global array. But we want to make sure we can start this session because it may fail. So I'll have an if statement. If we are not able to start the session, then we need to do something. So not only will this call session start, but it'll make sure that it's able to run. If it's not able to run, we need to present an error. So I've actually pre-made a custom error page. So I'll change the header's location to error.php, which is in the same directory, and we'll exit this code. There's no point to continue if I'm not able to start a session. If I'm able to start a session, the code between cookie and session is almost the same. Instead of calling cookie here, I'm going to call session. And to make sure we know it's actually a session variable, I'll go ahead and change the key to logged in. So make sure you change the super global from cookie to session, and also make sure you change this key here from username to logged in. Okay, and I'll change this variable. So if they've logged in, then we're going to redirect them to the hidden content or to the main page. Okay, so it's really important, and this will be on the exam. So here we are using sessions to propagate the login. It's important to note that we must call session start in order to access the session super global array. If they couldn't start, then we need to present an error. If we don't present an error, the user doesn't know what's going on, and you're going to get a very ugly call at 2 in the morning. Okay, so here we're using the session super global array. We changed the key to logged in. We changed the variable to logged in. If they've logged in, redirect them to the main page. If they haven't logged in, it's still the same. We check the action. If action is equal to do logged in, which is our hidden variable, we're going to grab the username and password. If the username is equal to test and the password is equal to pass, well, instead of setting a cookie, we're using session variables. I'll call the session super global array with the logged in key, and I'll pass the username as the value. So it's similar to set cookie, except here I'm using the server's super global array compared to using the user's local machine. So here I'm setting a session variable and then redirecting them to the home page. So instead of setting a cookie, okay, we'll set a key value pair in the session super global array, then redirect them to the main page. If we username and password is wrong, we'll display an error, and if we're not supposed to handle the login, we'll send them back to the login form. Okay, but we want to prevent URL hacking. Let's make sure we go to page 1. So in page 1, you'll see here I'm still checking cookie. So instead, I need to check session. So I'll change cookie to session. Make sure I change this key, which is now logged in. We also change this variable. If they have not logged in, then we're going to redirect them back to the login page. But in order to test this, we need to make sure we're deleting the session array. So let me delete the session array by changing logout. In logout, it's just a little bit different here. Remember, every time we want to use the session variable, we need to call session start. So I'll call session start here. If I'm not able to, we always redirect them to the error page. So I'll change the header's location to error.php like we did before. And there's no reason to run this code because it's going to fail, so I'll exit. If we are able to start the session, well, then we need to destroy all session data. One of the ways to do it is to set the session array, the whole thing, to a new array. And if the session was propagated using a cookie, we need to remove that cookie. So we're going to get the session, see if sessions are using cookies. If they are, we're going to set the cookie to empty and make sure everything's set back to the original value. The last thing that we can do to ensure that the session destroyed is to destroy the session by calling the session destroy method. We ensure we're destroying the session. We got rid of all the session data. We got rid of all the cookies. Now we're destroying the session, and then we redirect them back to the login. So we redirect them to the login. By redirecting them to the login will see the session is not set and then present them with the login form. Okay, so let's see if this works and also the URL hack works. I'll come back. Let's go into the other directory, number 4. So I'll go into number 4, session, and we'll start in with login.php. Login.php redirects me here to the login form. So I'll type in the wrong username and password. We get the error. If I type in the right username and password, you'll see here something happened. Too many redirects. So I've seen this several times. Most likely, one page is redirecting us there, the other page is redirecting us back. So we were supposed to go to page 1. Let's see what happened on page 1. Okay, if you look at this page, is there anything wrong? Okay, if you said check the keys, that's a good guess. Is the keys right? Logged in. We could look at login.php. Did we put it as logged in? We did. So that should be right. Well, let's see how we check the other session. If I come up, we checked the other session here, but we wanted to see if they were logged in, not logged out. So we did the same thing, but look what we did before. We must call session start in order to access the session array. Well, we didn't do that here. So I can actually copy that from login and make sure we paste that into page 1. So make sure you call session start. Now I can access the session super global array. Before we were getting too many redirects. Let's see what's happening now. Okay, it says it's not private. We can actually get rid of this HTTPS just for now. It goes to page 1. Can go to page 2. Now I can't go to page 2. So we need to see what happened here. But if I log out, let's look at this session variable. You'll see it's 4i0. If I log out, it changed. It deleted the session, destroyed the session, and reset the session ID. So you can see here I haven't logged in yet. Well, let's see what happened to page 2. If I go back, actually, let me go back to page 1. What happened here was I tried to access the session super global array, but we forgot to call session start. So we couldn't access this. So it was saying it was empty, and this was saying we weren't logged in, so it redirected us to login.php. But when we got to login.php, we used it correctly. We called session start first. It saw session wasn't empty, so it redirected us to page 1. Got back to page 1. We forgot to call this, so we tried to access this session variable. It says it was empty. Well, now we're not logged in. It redirects us back to login. Login says, hey, wait, session is set. Go back to page 1. Page 1 says, no, go back to login. And we got an infinite loop. So let's see what happened to page 2. Okay, page 2, the same thing. We're not calling session, so session was false here. Redirects us back to login. Login redirects us back to page 1. And that's why we kept seeing page 1 every time we tried to click page 2. So we call session start here as well, and hopefully we can access this session super global array. So we check it again. I'll do test, pass. Now I go to page 1. Now I can go to page 2. If I do a log out, you'll see the session variable change, which is good. So we destroyed the previous session. If I try to do a URL hack, okay, which you'll want to check on every page for your final project, you'll see I can't go. And if I try to do a URL hack on page 2, I also can't go. Okay, so the URL hack works. Type the username password. If it's wrong, I get an error message, which is what you want to do on your final project. Type the right one, redirects me to the home page. Go to page 2, which works. I can log out, destroys the previous session, and I cannot URL hack. So you're going to want to check all these things on your final project. Make sure you do a URL hack on all the pages. So here, even though I see a session variable, it doesn't mean that that's stored on the user's local machine. The browser may be able to read the session from the server, but a session variable is actually stored on the server, not the user's local machine. Session and cookie are similar. Cookie stored on the user's local machine. Session is stored on the user's server. Both are used to help with a login or contain some user information. Okay, that's it for user authentication. Please comment down below, like the videos, and we'll see you in the next video.